Hello, welcome to In the Court of the Winton King. Today's review is.
It's not Strange Days.
No, it's not. No.
Same from last week.
We did Strange Days last week.
Waiting for the Sun.
Waiting for the sun. But before that,
Our brand new segment, the Wenton Cheese Review.
the Winter Cheese Review, because we're big fans of cheese, so we hope that you'll go with us on this, because we like cheese.
Yeah, I think we can do a really good job here.
we
We'll
like to share.
highlight some cheeses that you may not have thought about in the past.
So, what's our first cheese?
First cheese is a double Gloucester. This is a yellow and buttery cheese with a smooth texture and a savoury flavour. And then we've got another double Gloucester, but this time with onion and chive. It's a full fat hard cheese infused with the tangy taste of onion and chives. Sounds lovely. Now we've got cheddar and balsamic onion. I'm a big fan of balsamic onions, and this is a normal cheddar cheese infused with balsamic onions, slightly lighter than Wensleydale, but a real nice hard cheddar taste. Quite mature, but not on the extreme side. The next one we got is quite an interesting one. It's called Applewood. It's Sainsbury's Applewood. It's smoky and slightly waxy. It's bursting with flavour, and it's you can taste the full fat cream that they use in the process. You all right there, Kev? Yeah, everything going right? Okay, our final cheese is Sainsbury's Basic Singles. Obviously I say cheese in the loosest sense of the term, but this is the everyman cheese, the stuff that you put in your lunches and on your burgers. It contains a variety of ingredients, including paprika, but not that much cheese.
So, Waiting for the Sun, that album we're supposed to be reviewing, that then.
Yeah.
This is our final Doors, end of the Odyssey, the experience of the Doors, and it's my first time I've listened to Doors albums, strangely. It is disappointingly inconclusive, or maybe I'm just right about them.
I think this is the final album of the mopping up the bits, if you know what I mean.
Right,
sort of trying to get back to the glory of the first album. And I think we were expecting new things come forth in this album. It didn't really happen. Morrison Hotel is definitely different because it's sort of a lot more bluesy and that. But yeah, don't forget this is 1968. It's only 1 year later.
Deep Purple had done 2 albums in 1968. By 1969, done 3 albums. They're shit as well. That's very harsh. The third one's very good. I do think with this album they are pushing themselves to move forward, but also tellingly the sidelong epic that Jim Morrison, I know, had written all the lyrics for, and I assume the band had written lots of music, wasn't included. They included one section of it, didn't they, which is Not to Touch the Earth. And there's Wikipedia says, because obviously all my Doors knowledge comes from Wikipedia and the documentary on YouTube, but Wikipedia says, on the main Doors page, it says that the producer refused to put it on because it wasn't commercial, suggesting it's the producer pushing them into a box, into some sort of safer, poppier territory, which obviously would result in this huge sale. But the Waiting for the Sun page says that they couldn't get a satisfactory performance of the whole piece, so they elected not to put it on the album, which is interesting.
Typical Doors mythology, contradictory stories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's not clear whether it's the band pushing a mythology that isn't true, because Jim isn't there to defend himself, or not. It's also interesting, one of the bonus tracks is a composition by, it's supposed to be Albione, but he didn't actually write it. It's actually Giazzotto, and Adagio in G minor. Tellingly not on the album. Now for me that's the best thing on the album, and it's a bonus track. But of course they didn't write it, but they did arrange a performance of it, which is wonderful. And maybe there'll be a section of their audience who would be horrified at them doing that. That's why they wouldn't do it, and that's the conservatism, and that's what makes it very poppy, too safe, and never seems to do the things that does, or that does, or that does. And they teeter on the brink of music, and there are moments where basically it's Burt Bacharach music with a pop band playing in the background, which is fine, but it's music, isn't it? I tried to find, there's a great quote from Robert Fripp about music, and I could not find it, but he did say it was energetic death, which is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, there is good stuff on here. but it's not as consistent as the first album. It seems there's like a short run of songs which are okay. There is some memorable stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff that is quite unmemorable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all these cool concepts. You've got the summer and the winter thing, and it's all about the changing of the guard and the shifting of the next stage of the new age, literally. And it's played on these twee 60s pop songs. So you read the title and you say, oh, winter, summer, it's going to be really... And the music doesn't have the weight of the subject.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a Manzarek thing. I think Jim Morrison and Krieger, they're kind of on the same wavelength. Krieger's probably a little bit more of a more experimental musician than Manzarek. Pretty safe, quite good at identifying little ditties that are quite memorable, and that's his sort of contribution goings on, and that might be holding them back slightly.
But would have resulted in huge success at the time.
Well, you got to remember that they're actually building quite a reputation as a live performance.
Yeah.
Jim Morrison, it was quite unnatural. It took to the stage. He didn't immediately take to the stage, but by now he's really finding his feet.
He's rolling around on the floor and all crazy stuff. I do think it does seem as they were a live band, and seeing them live would have been a very different experience to listening to their albums.
Yeah, we are still before the big prog push with the epics everywhere. Yeah, so I mean, it would be a bit unfair to think we should have.
Why haven't they done it already?
2 10-minute songs per album at least, and then craziness in short bursts.
Yeah, and that they did want to do a sidelong epic. Yeah. And they didn't, but they had written it.
I mean, I think generally considered sort of proto-prog, but I think real prog heads would be quite offended by that.
Disgusted. They're not even European. They're American. Yeah. American.
That's the interesting thing about the Doors. They are, if you take them on their own merits and you take consideration of the time, what was coming before them and around them, they were actually pretty.
Yeah, depends what you compare it to. Compare them to the Mamas and the Papas. That's great, and they're a really cool band with really energetic stuff going on. But if you compare them to Zappa, who's from the same area of the world at least, there's no comparison.
Musically.
Yeah, and lyrically. So, first song.
Track 1, Hello.
Hello, I Love You. That's a terrible title. It sounds like the Kinks. I was really disappointed, looked on the internet and everyone else agrees it sounds like the Kinks. I thought it was just me and I was going to be saying something controversial.
They tend to open albums with
the real meh.
A memorable pop song.
Yeah.
And this is it. It's alright, yeah.
Track 2.
Love Street.
Sounds like Burt Bacharach, if you like that kind of thing. You'll like that, but it is meh.
I got a real Divine Comedy vibe for this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's his voice, because they've got very similar voices. Obviously we'd say one's ripping off the other, but it's got that sort of head bobbing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Divine Comedy, it's ironic.
Yeah.
We could talk for hours about that, but if you listen to it and you like it, you're not being ironic, you just like it.
It's hard because Jim Morrison has his detractors. Yeah, he's not widely accepted to be a genius or anything like that. But you would have suspected he had enough intelligence to be ironic.
But no, I don't think he did. I think he took himself very seriously.
There's definite. I don't know. I think there's a definite sense of humour about it. Like in the court case when he got charged with indecent exposure, where he did something strange. He said something which I thought was quite witty. He was saying, I was watching Robbie Krieger play because he plays so fast.
Oh yeah.
And the prosecution said, yeah, but you've seen him play hundreds of times. He goes, yeah, but he keeps getting better, man. He keeps getting faster. Which I thought was quite funny. Yeah, it shows
that's pretty witty.
A level of intelligence. To come up with that on the spot is quite good. So I think he is intelligent enough to put that kind of humour into his lyrics, which always sort of casts that. Is this serious? Are they meaning this music to be serious, or is it supposed to be a little bit funny?
I mean, Horse Latitudes from the last album.
Yeah. If
you check that as something funny, it is hilarious, and I love it. But I assumed he was being serious. I don't know.
Interesting. I wasn't 100% certain that this was serious, but obviously I've got 20 odd years or 30 odd years, 40 years of music going since that. So if someone played that today, you would think it's an ironic piece.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Next song?
Track 3, Not to Touch the Earth.
Yeah, this is the Lizard stuff. I think it works way better in context. It is obviously part of a big piece.
Yeah.
Cool, evil, sci-fi kind of stuff. Very cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's the best track on the album, isn't it? Because it's weird. They do this stuff kind of well.
I know, and they don't actually do it as much as you'd think.
I wonder if it's a sort of sales thing. They've got to have the Hello, I Love You on there so they can do this to shift albums. I mean, they're quite successful. They sold a lot of albums, and if they trade in some of their artistic integrity or whatever you want to call it for sales, to maintain those sales,
then you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a common thing, isn't it? I think the problem is people who do that, they end up never reaching that goal of having that freedom. And really, to have that freedom, if you've already gone commercial, you have to have serious success. Be Robert Plant and go off to Morocco and except with people playing weird music.
But I love this. It's a good track. Track 4, Summer's Almost Gone.
Cool 60s pop. That cool concept of summer winter. And obviously, like I said, it's just a cool 60s pop song.
Yeah, pretty forgettable in that case, but yeah, alright.
Next one. And same, more so with this one. This is more
Wintertime
60s.
Love.
Very, very 60s. And doesn't take the weight of the lyrics at all. But it is what it is. It's not like it's bad. It should be death metal, really.
This ain't going to make a great hit to the Doors. It just takes you through the album. I think this is indicating that they're struggling to come up with stuff.
That's the impression I get, is that they're not. That first album had so much promise. This band that's going to be
Maybe not so much because they are limited, because they are a very limited band. They've got one guitarist. They never hired a bass player, or they never took on a bass player, drummer, and Manzarek, who's got pretty limited range of sounds that he uses. Like, so they're struggling to come up with to new stuff. Next track.
This is The Unknown Soldier. I couldn't think of anything to say about this. It's cool.
Yeah, it's an anti. It became like an anti-war anthem, didn't it? It had political intonations, which kind of fed into their live thing as an anti-establishment band, going into these sort of very conservative towns and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff on the stage and shocking the innocent audience with their appalling views and appalling shows.
How dare they? Whereas in actual fact, it was what they said, not what they did. They didn't really do any of that stuff. It was telling people to think for themselves.
This is one of their most, I would say, memorable songs, but it's probably not quite right. Probably one of their most
interesting.
Yeah.
Iconic.
They've got military drumming in there and stuff like that, so that
Yeah, they are trying to do different things and trying to open out a bit.
Yeah, you could imagine Roger Waters listening to this stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking,
let's do that. Let's do lots of stuff about war.
Yeah.
All the time.
We'll put actors in there to say things that sound like they're in the army. Spanish Caravan.
Spanish Caravan, bit of Spanish guitar. It was nice enough. It's a bit of Spanish guitar, and then there's a bit of sort of generic psychedelic stuff at the end. Quite nice.
Mate, again, it's a good song, but maybe this is sort of pointing to they're struggling to come up with something different, because this is Krieger's background, his Spanish and flamenco guitar. So it feels like a return to form. What can we do? I can play a bit of Spanish guitar. We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, and that's what he can do.
Yeah.
I get the impression it's almost kind of that's what he was trying to do. He struggles to do anything else.
It shows, because it's quite good.
Yeah.
My Wild Love.
My Wild Love. I was trying to think what to call this. Is this very early blues chanting? What do you call it?
Yeah, it's the kind of stuff in old films you see them on the prison smashing the rocks. This is the kind of thing they're singing
on the railroad.
Yeah.
I assume that's where that style of music comes from. I don't quite know. I couldn't figure out what it was, but yeah, that's really cool. Don't know what it's about.
No, I just like it. That is probably we're probably coming to the end of the strongest part of the album. The Unknown Soldier, Spanish Caravan, and this one are.
Well, they're doing something. They're spreading out a bit, and they're doing something interesting.
Okay, next track, and then we go back to We Could Be So Good Together.
A 60s song. I think what's different about this one though is that it sounds like Jim Morrison, whereas Hello, I Love You doesn't. That's him doing his pop voice. Here, he sounds like his voice. Other than that,
not a lot to say about it really. Track 10. Yes, The River Knows.
I love the title. Great title. A nice bit of piano. And again, we're hearing one of the musicians actually doing something different rather than just doing a organ. He's actually playing some piano, and that in itself makes it interesting that at least they're doing something different. But it is just a song.
It's fairly forgettable.
I
actually think if you listen to this album like 20 times, I think you'd start to dig this track, but not many people are going to know it. Next track, the last track.
Yeah, the last song, our last Doors song we're reviewing.
5 to 1.
Heavy, bassy, cool, poppy, rocky.
I quite like 5 to 1.
And that really gives away the whole thing of it. It's alright.
I quite like this album.
yeah, I quite like it. It's quite nice. Compared to the mighty albums of Physical Graffiti and The Lamb Dies Down on Broadway and things like that, these other things we reviewed, this is...
a transition album. Who knows what the Doors would have gone on to accomplish had Jim Morrison
not faked his death.
There are rumours about him that he'd sort of effectively left the Doors. You're never going to pull that apart. Maybe they'd done everything they could, but what they did in that short time, 5 years, has sold lots and lots and lots of albums.
They certainly are.
Every generation that comes along seems to discover the Doors and buy their albums.
That's true. I know it's interesting. The next album after this one, Jim Morrison wrote very little, and I think perhaps he'd sort of given up pushing the good stuff. And it's easy to think, well, it was Jim Morrison was doing the good stuff, but it does seem that way. And he was limited by that band.
Yeah, I think he was also limited by substance abuse.
Well, yeah,
because the alcohol thing was kicking in quite strong now. He probably was getting pretty bored. I mean, I think he always felt an integral part of the band, but he had effectively become bigger than the band.
Okay, that's it. That's the Doors. I have nothing to say. So join us next week for Tenacious D. We've got loads of stuff lined up. We're only doing one Tenacious D, obviously, but we've got other stuff lined up, and obviously we've got a big line of requests. They're all coming. We've also got other stuff we're doing as well, so that's all coming. Join us next week. See you soon.
Thanks for watching. Give us some likes.